There are places on this earth that don't feel like they belong to it. Places where the ground beneath your feet seems charged with something older than memory. Where the air tastes different. Where even the light falls at angles that make you question what century you're standing in. Yemen is one of those places. It's a land that predates the pyramids, where skyscrapers rise not from steel and glass, but from mud and straw. Where time doesn't move forward in a straight line, but circles back on itself like a prayer repeated across generations. This isn't the Yemen you've seen in headlines. This isn't about borders or bombs or the machinery of war. This is about the other Yemen, the one that exists beneath the noise, woven into the fabric of daily life like patterns in ancient cloth. It's about songs that have been sung for 3,000 years, about markets where frankincense still changes hands, about cities carved into cliffs and forests that shouldn't exist, and animals that walk between the physical and the mythical. It's about a place that feels, when you finally stand in it, like you've stepped through a tear in the world and found yourself on another planet entirely. The mystery begins before you even arrive. It starts in the stories, in the fragments of history that drift down through time, like dust particles in afternoon light. A kingdom ruled by a queen whose name still echoes. A dam that held back the desert for 1,000 years. Trees that bleed red when you cut them. Cities built vertically when the rest of the world was building out. And everywhere, this sense that something has been preserved here that was lost everywhere else. Some older way of being. Some conversation with landscape and sky that the modern world forgot how to have. You see it first in Shibam, the Manhattan of the desert, they call it, though that name doesn't do it justice. Manhattan is about ambition and commerce, and the relentless upward climb of capitalism. Shibam is about survival, about what happens when you have no room to expand outward, when the desert presses in from all sides, when the only direction left is up. The buildings rise like prayers from the valley floor. 5 stories, 6, 7, some reaching 8 stories into that bleached out sky, each one constructed entirely from mud brick, held together with clay and straw, and some kind of architectural genius that shouldn't work, but has worked for 500 years. These aren't replicas or reconstructions. These are the original buildings, maintained and lived in continuously since the 16th century. Their walls replastered every few years with the same mixture their builders used, the same techniques passed down from father to son, mother to daughter, generation after generation. From a distance, Shibam looks like a mirage, like something your mind conjured up from heat and dehydration. The buildings cluster together inside the old city walls, each one pressed against its neighbor, creating this vertical maze that seems to defy every law of physics and common sense. How does mud bricks support 8 stories? How do these structures survive the occasional rains, the wind that comes howling across the desert, the sheer weight of centuries? The answer is in the design. These weren't built by people who could afford mistakes. This was engineering born from necessity, from intimate knowledge of materials and climate, and the behavior of desert storms. The foundations go deep, sometimes as deep as the buildings are tall, anchored into bedrock. The walls at ground level are 3 feet thick, tapering as they rise. The windows are small and placed strategically, creating natural ventilation while keeping out the worst of the heat. The clay and straw mixture has insulating properties that maintain cool interiors even when the outside temperature climbs past 100 degrees. But the brilliance goes deeper than just construction technique. Shibam was built as a walled city for protection from desert raiders, from rival tribes, from the constant low-level warfare that characterized trade route politics in medieval Arabia. The decision to build up instead of out was partly defensive. A compact, vertical city is easier to defend than a sprawling horizontal one. The walls could be watched, the gates could be controlled, and if enemies did breach the outer defenses, the buildings themselves became fortresses, each family's tower a last line of defense. Yet there was another reason for building vertically, one that had nothing to do with warfare. Shibam sits on the edge of Wadi Hadramaut, a valley cut through the desert by an ancient river. The valley floor is where the water is, where crops can be grown, where life can be sustained. Every square foot devoted to housing was a square foot taken away from agriculture. By building up, the people of Shibam maximized their farming land while maintaining a significant population. It was medieval urban planning at its finest, sustainable development before anyone had coined the term. The city thrived for centuries as a crucial stop on the frankincense trade route. Caravans traveling from Oman and Dhofar to Mediterranean markets passed through Shibam, bringing exotic goods, news from distant lands, and wealth. The city became prosperous, despite or perhaps because of its isolation. Its towers are filled with merchants and traders, craftsmen and scholars. The narrow streets buzzed with multiple languages. Gold and silver changed hands. Knowledge was exchanged alongside commodities. Walk through Shibam today, and you're walking through a living museum. Old women sit in doorways, grinding spices with stone mortars. Children play in the shadows between buildings, their games unchanged from those their ancestors played. Men gather in the late afternoon to chew cat and discuss the day's events, their voices drifting up through the narrow streets. Laundry hangs from the upper windows. The smell of incense mingles with cooking smoke. Life continues as it has for 5 centuries, adapted to modernity in small ways, but fundamentally unchanged. Quick pit stop before we move on. Play along with me. 2 truths and a lie. Yemen's coffee helped shape global cafe culture. Dragon's blood trees only grow here. Sana'a has 0 historic mosques. Which one's the lie? And what do you want me to prove on screen next? The buildings themselves have a beauty that takes time to appreciate. At first glance, they're almost uniform, rectangular towers with small windows and flat roofs. But look closer and you see the variations. Each building has its own character, its own decorative flourishes. Some windows are framed with white gypsum, creating geometric patterns that catch the light. Some roofs have small towers or crenellations. Some doorways are elaborately carved. The overall effect is of unity within diversity, of individual expression, contained within communal harmony. It's this harmony that makes Shibam extraordinary. These aren't buildings competing for attention. They're buildings in conversation with each other, creating together something more impressive than any single structure could achieve alone. It's architecture as collaboration, as ongoing dialogue between past and present, between individual and community, between human ambition and environmental constraint. If Shibam is about adaptation to the horizontal constraints of the desert, then villages like Alhajara and Al-Qara are about adaptation to the vertical constraints of mountains. These are places where earth meets sky in the most dramatic ways possible, where cliffs rise like walls at the edge of the world, where the only buildable land is straight up or straight down. Al-Hajara clings to its mountainside like a stubborn prayer. The stone houses stack on top of each other, each one seemingly supporting the one above, the whole village appearing less built than grown, some strange mineral formation that developed human characteristics. The stone is the color of old parchment, sun-bleached and weather-worn, blending so seamlessly with the cliff face that from certain angles the village disappears entirely, becoming one with the mountain. The people here didn't have the luxury of choosing where to build. The valley floors were for farming. The flat areas were too exposed to wind and weather, so they built into the cliffs, carving spaces from solid rock, stacking stone on stone with a precision that required no mortar. The houses telescope up the mountainside, each one a little higher than the last, connected by narrow paths and stone staircases that zigzag between levels. Inside, the homes are cool and dark, lit by small windows that frame views of impossible beauty. The rooms are narrow, the ceilings low, every space optimized for the simple acts of living. But step onto the roof. Every house has a flat roof, an additional room open to the sky, and you're suddenly in cathedral space. The mountains stretch away in all directions, peaks and valleys layered in shades of brown and gold and purple. The air so clear, you feel you could reach out and touch peaks 20 miles distant. Alhajara takes this vertical living to even more extreme heights. Here, houses perch on cliff edges 100 feet above the valley floor, accessible only by narrow paths carved into the rock face. Looking up from below, you see windows and doorways opening onto sheer drops. Children playing on terraces where one misstep means falling into nothing. It seems impossible, insane, a village built by people who had either tremendous courage or no concept of fear. But spend time here, and you begin to understand the logic. These aren't death wish locations. They're strategic choices born from generations of accumulated wisdom. The cliff-top positions provide natural defense. No army could storm these villages without being seen hours in advance. The elevation provides clear views of the surrounding terrain, crucial for people who depend on knowing when storms were approaching or rivals were moving through the area. And the cliffs themselves protect from the worst of the desert wind, creating microclimates where certain crops could be grown, where water could be preserved. The architecture reflects this relationship with vertical space. The walls are thick, built from stone that came from the mountain itself, so the houses are literally part of the landscape. The roofs are flat and multifunctional. They're drying spaces for crops and meat, sleeping areas during hot months, gathering spaces for celebrations, and defensive positions if needed. The interiors are maze-like, rooms connecting at odd angles, staircases spiraling up through the middle of buildings, creating these three-dimensional puzzles where you can easily get lost, even in a relatively small house. There's a silence in these mountain villages that's different from any other silence. It's not the absence of sound, but the presence of something else, some quality of stillness that seems to predate human occupation, that was here before the first stone was laid and will remain after the last house crumbles. It's the silence of deep time, of geological patience, of mountains that measure change in millennia. Standing on a rooftop in Alhajara at sunset, watching the light drain from the sky and the stars emerge one by one, you feel that silence enter you. You become part of it. For those moments, you exist in the same temporal space as these mountains, these stones, this ancient human persistence in the face of impossible geography. Jabal Sabir rises like a giant's shoulder above the city of Taiz, its peak reaching over 3,000 meters into the air so thin it makes your lungs work for every breath. This isn't just a mountain, it's a presence, a personality, something that dominates the landscape and the imagination of everyone who lives in its shadow. The slopes are terraced from base to summit, an achievement of agricultural engineering that took 2,000 years to complete. Generation after generation, carving horizontal lines into vertical stone, creating thousands of narrow shelves where crops could grow. Coffee grows here. Real, original Arabian coffee, descended from the first domesticated plants, cultivated using methods that predate European discovery of the New World. The coffee that fueled the Ottoman Empire, that sparked the coffee houses of Vienna and Venice, that became the foundation of global trade networks. It came from mountains like this, from terraces like these. Walk through the coffee groves in the growing season, and you're surrounded by glossy green leaves and red berries, the air humid and fragrant, more like a rainforest than a desert mountain. But coffee isn't all that grows here. There's barley and sorghum on the higher terraces, taking advantage of cooler temperatures and different rainfall patterns. There's kwat, that peculiar Yemeni crop that's somewhere between tea and tobacco in its cultural significance. Its mild stimulant properties making it central to social life. And there are fruit trees, pomegranates, and figs and almonds tucked into protected spots where the microclimate allows them to survive. The terraces themselves are marvels of engineering. Each one required moving tons of stone to create retaining walls, hauling thousands of baskets of soil up the mountainside, building and maintaining drainage systems to prevent erosion during the rainy season. The walls are dry stacked, built without mortar, yet they've held for centuries because the builders understood weight distribution. After all, they knew how to select and place stones, so they locked together because they were patient enough to do it right the first time. Water management on Jabal Sabir is equally sophisticated. The ancient inhabitants built aqueducts that captured runoff from the upper slopes, stone channels that follow the contours of the mountain, distributing water to different levels. They carved tanks into solid rock to store water during dry periods. They understood that water, more than any other resource, determined the mountain's carrying capacity, so they built infrastructure to maximize every drop. Would you rather wander through Shibam's mud skyscrapers or climb into the mountain villages clinging to cliffs? But Jabal Sabir isn't only about agriculture and water management. It's also home to one of Arabia's most enigmatic creatures, the Arabian leopard. These are smaller than their African cousins, adapted to desert and mountain environments, capable of surviving on minimal water, hunting everything from baboons to mountain gazelles. They're also critically endangered, with perhaps 200 individuals remaining in the wild, scattered across Yemen, Saudi Arabia, and Oman. On Jabal Sabir, the leopard exists in a strange space between reality and myth. Local stories describe them as protectors of the mountain, spirits that take cat form, creatures that possess baraka, blessing or spiritual power. Shepherds report seeing them, but almost never losing livestock to them, as if some ancient understanding exists between human and predator. Hunters once pursued them for their pelts, but traditional knowledge held that killing a leopard without cause would bring misfortune, a belief that may have saved the species from even earlier extinction. The reality of the Arabian leopard is harder to document than the mythology. They're nocturnal and elusive, perfectly adapted to moving through difficult terrain without being seen. Camera traps occasionally capture ghostly images, a tawny shape moving through moonlight, eyes reflecting green in the infrared. Scientists study their tracks and scat, piecing together population estimates and movement patterns. But the leopard itself remains largely hidden, a presence felt more than seen, a reminder that even in heavily human-modified landscapes like Jabal Sabir, wildness persists in the margins. The mountain is thus a palimpsest, layers of meaning and use written over each other. It's agricultural infrastructure, it's a watershed, it's a coffee plantation and a cat garden. It's a habitat for endangered species. It's a sacred space, invested with spiritual significance by generations of pilgrims and mystics. It's all of these simultaneously, and the genius of traditional Yemeni culture is that these uses weren't seen as contradictory, but as complementary, different aspects of a unified relationship with the landscape. Alhajara sits in the Haraz mountains as if it grew there, like the mountain decided to form itself into human habitation. This is stone architecture at its most extreme. Not stone facing over wood or brick, but solid stone. Multi-story houses carved directly from the mountain or built from blocks so precisely cut they need no mortar. The village climbs the cliff face in tiers, each level connected to the ones above and below by narrow stairs and passages, creating a three-dimensional maze where you can easily lose track of whether you're inside a building or outside on a street. The houses here are vertical worlds unto themselves. The ground floor is for livestock, goats, sheep, maybe a donkey. The second floor is storage for grain and fodder, kept separate from living spaces to prevent vermin. The third and fourth floors are where people live, with the main reception rooms on the top floor to catch breezes and maximize views. It's a logical arrangement, worked out over centuries, optimizing the use of vertical space in an environment where horizontal space is at a premium. The alleys between buildings are so narrow, you can sometimes touch both walls at once. They twist and turn, rise and fall, creating this disorienting environment where your normal sense of direction fails. But the narrowness is functional. It creates shade during the day, funnels breezes through the village, and makes every space feel intimate, protected. These aren't streets designed for vehicles or even pack animals. They're designed for humans moving on foot, scaled to the human body and human pace. From a distance, Alhajara almost disappears against the cliff. The stone of the houses is the same stone as the mountain, weathered to the same color, stacked at the same angles. It's only when you look closer that individual buildings emerge, that you see the windows and doors, the decorative stonework, the signs of human habitation. It's camouflage, but not intentional camouflage. It's simply what happens when people build using local materials, when they work with the landscape rather than against it. Taiz, at the base of Jabal Sabir, presents a different face of Yemeni culture. This was historically Yemen's cultural capital, its center of learning and activism, the city that produced poets and politicians, revolutionaries and scholars. Even today, despite everything, Taiz maintains its reputation for education, for political consciousness, for a kind of civic engagement that distinguishes it from other Yemeni cities. The Al-Kahira citadel dominates Taiz's skyline, a massive fortress that climbs partway up Jabal Sabir's lower slopes. Built layer by layer over centuries, it served as a military stronghold, governmental center, and refuge during times of conflict. The walls are 30 feet high in places, constructed from massive stone blocks that must have required hundreds of workers to move and position. Inside, the citadel is a small city, barracks, administrative buildings, cisterns, storerooms, and a mosque. It could withstand months-long sieges, its defenders supplied by wells that tapped into the mountain's aquifers. But the citadel was more than just a military installation. It was a symbol of power and legitimacy. Whoever controlled the citadel controlled Taiz, and whoever controlled Taiz had significant influence over Yemen's highland regions. Dynasties rose and fell based on their ability to hold this fortress. Revolts began in its shadow. Treaties were signed in its halls. The stones have soaked up 500 years of political drama, of intrigue and betrayal, of courage and desperation. Walk through Taiz today and you see layers of history compressed into geography. Ottoman-era buildings stand next to Rasulid-era mosques. British colonial influences show in some architectural details. Modern concrete structures rise among traditional stone houses. The city is a palimpsest, each era leaving its mark, none completely erasing what came before. And through it all, the citadel watches, its stones golden in morning light, its presence a reminder that this city has seen everything, has survived everything, has outlasted every army and empire that tried to claim it. Marib exists at the intersection of history and legend, a place where archaeological evidence and ancient stories become so entangled, it's impossible to separate them. This was the capital of the kingdom of Saba, Shibam, a civilization that controlled the frankincense trade for nearly 1,000 years, that built temples to sun gods and moon gods, that developed an agricultural system so sophisticated it supported hundreds of thousands of people in the middle of the desert. The Queen of Sheba supposedly ruled from here, though whether she was a historical figure or a mythical character remains debated. The stories say she traveled to Jerusalem to meet King Solomon, bringing gifts of gold and spices, engaging in a battle of wits that became legendary. Islamic tradition names her Bilqis and provides details about her conversion to monotheism. Ethiopian tradition claims her as an ancestor to their royal line. Yemen claims her as its own, and Marib as her capital. What's not debated is the Great Dam of Marib, one of the ancient world's engineering marvels. Built sometime in the first millennium BCE, it stretched across the valley, holding back seasonal floods and creating a sophisticated irrigation system. The dam wasn't a single structure, but a complex of dams, sluice gates, and channels that distributed water to farmland on both sides of the valley. At its peak, the system irrigated over 10,000 hectares, supporting a population that made Marib one of Arabia's wealthiest cities. The dam worked for nearly 1,000 years. Think about that. 1,000 years of continuous operation, of seasonal floods contained and channeled, of crops watered and cities sustained. It required constant maintenance, an entire bureaucracy devoted to water management, laws governing water rights, and engineering knowledge passed down through generations. It represented the pinnacle of South Arabian civilization, proof that human ingenuity could overcome even desert environments. Then it failed. Historical records suggest multiple partial failures, starting around the 6th century CE, culminating in a catastrophic collapse around 570 CE. The Quran references this event as divine punishment, the flood of Arim that destroyed gardens and orchards, that scattered the people and ended Saba's dominance. Archaeological evidence confirms widespread abandonment of the area following the dam's failure, as the irrigation system collapsed and farmland reverted to desert. The ruins that remain are haunting. The dam's stone foundations still cross the valley, massive blocks that would require modern machinery to move. Temple ruins scatter across the landscape, columns carved with South Arabian script, altars where incense once burned, statues of gods whose names are preserved in inscriptions, but whose worship is long forgotten. The site of ancient Marib lies under sand dunes, with only the largest structures visible above the surface, their walls emerging from the desert like the bones of some enormous beast. The inscriptions are particularly fascinating. South Arabian script, written right to left, documenting royal decrees, military campaigns, building projects, and religious dedications. These texts provide our primary evidence for Sabaean history, offering names, dates, and details that would otherwise be lost. They mention kingdoms and rulers, wars and alliances, all conducted in a corner of Arabia that seemed impossibly remote and yet was connected to Mediterranean, African, and Indian Ocean trade networks. Marib today is attempting a resurrection. Modern dams have been built, agriculture is returning, and the city is growing again. Archaeological teams work to excavate and preserve the ancient sites, but the ruins remain the main attraction. These fragments of a vanished civilization, these stones that remember when this desert was a garden, when this isolation was the center of the world. In a country defined by arid landscapes and water scarcity, Jabal Bura is an anomaly. This mountain rises from Yemen's coastal plain, its slopes covered in dense forest, its air humid and cool, its ecosystem more reminiscent of East Africa than Arabia. It shouldn't exist. The surrounding area is semi-desert, yet here is this green mountain, this island of biodiversity, sustained by moisture that blows in from the Red Sea and condenses on the upper slopes. The forest is unlike anything else in Yemen. Trees grow thick, their canopies creating shade even at midday. Vines climb between branches. Moss covers stones. The understory is dense with ferns and shrubs. It's a cloud forest, a rare ecosystem that depends on consistent fog and mist, that exists in a narrow altitudinal band where conditions are just right. These forests are biodiversity hotspots, containing species found nowhere else, adapted to these specific conditions. Jabal Bura's most famous inhabitants are hamadryas baboons, large primates that live in troops of up to several hundred individuals. They're impressive animals. Adult males can weigh 50 pounds, with long manes of silver-grey fur and powerful builds. They're also highly social, with complex hierarchies and communication systems, capable of recognizing hundreds of individuals and tracking alliances and rivalries within the troop. But what makes Jabal Bura's baboons particularly interesting is their relationship with local human populations. These aren't just animals, they're neighbors, sharing the mountain in ways that blur the line between wild and domestic. The baboons raid crops sometimes, causing real economic damage, yet they're rarely killed in retaliation. Instead, they're regarded with a mixture of exasperation and respect, seen as part of the mountain's character, as much residents of Jabal Bura as the human villagers. This tolerance stems partly from religious beliefs. In Islamic tradition, baboons occupy an ambiguous category, neither fully animal nor fully human, possessing intelligence and social organization that suggests some awareness, some moral capacity. Stories circulate about baboons who saved lost children, who warned villages of approaching danger, and who seem to understand human speech. These stories may or may not be true, but they shape attitudes, creating a cultural framework where baboons deserve consideration beyond mere pest control. There's also a practical element. Killing baboons is difficult and dangerous. They're intelligent enough to recognize threats and strong enough to seriously injure adult humans. A wounded baboon is aggressive and unpredictable, and they live in troops, so killing one often brings retaliation from others. It's simply easier to tolerate occasional crop raids than to wage war against primates who are, in their way, as invested in Jabal Bura's resources as humans are. The relationship has created rituals and practices. Farmers plant extra crops as baboon share, accepting some loss as inevitable. They leave certain fruit trees unharvested, creating buffers that reduce pressure on main crops. They avoid cutting certain forest areas that serve as baboon territory, maintaining habitat that keeps the troops from spending too much time near human settlements. It's coexistence rather than conflict, pragmatic rather than sentimental, but effective. Watch a troop of baboons moving through Jabal Bura's forest, and you see wild intelligence in action. They travel in formation, sentries positioned at the front and rear, scouts ranging ahead to check for danger. Mothers carry infants, older juveniles play as they walk, and dominant males maintain order through postures and vocalizations. They know every fruiting tree, every water source, every shortcut, and escape route. They've mapped this mountain as thoroughly as any human, and they remember, generation after generation, knowledge passed down through observation and imitation. Sana'a is often described as one of the world's oldest continuously inhabited cities. Evidence suggests people lived here more than 2,000 years ago. Whether that claim is exact or not, the city is undeniably ancient. It sits in a high valley over 2,000 meters above sea level, ringed by mountains that provide protection and water. Its location also placed it on important trade routes linking the coast with the interior. The old city is what makes Sana'a unforgettable. It is not a museum, but a living place. Families still occupy houses that are centuries old. Shops, mosques, and bathhouses remain in use. The tall houses rise 4 to 6 stories, decorated with white gypsum patterns over red brick. The designs resemble gingerbread houses, with stars, crescents, and frames that both beautify and serve practical purposes. They mark property lines, highlight structures, and show wealth. Answer to the earlier game. Number 3 was the lie. Sana'a is full of historic mosques. The Great Mosque dates back over a millennium. Homes follow a distinct layout. The ground floor is for shops or storage. The middle levels are living quarters. The top floor is the mafraj, a reception room filled with light and breezes. This is where men gather each afternoon to chew cat, host guests, and conduct business. It is both a social and political space. The suku is another highlight. Narrow lanes twist between high walls, filled with merchants selling spices, silver, cloth, and modern goods. The air is heavy with the scent of cumin, cardamom, and incense. Bargaining is expected, and hospitality is part of every transaction. Trade here is as much about relationships as sales. In modern times, the Al-Saleh Mosque dominates the skyline. Built in 2008, it can hold 40,000 worshippers. It is both admired and criticized for its cost. Still, it adds to the city's grandeur. Yet it is the old city, alive with tradition and community, that truly defines Sana'a. Dar Al-Hajar stands on a massive rock just outside Sana'a. At first glance, it looks unreal, like a palace pasted onto a boulder. But it is very real. It was built in the 1930s by Imam Yahya, who ruled Yemen during a time of isolation and political tension. The palace rises 5 stories straight from the rock, its walls blending with the stone beneath. The style is traditional Yemeni, but with the Imam's own touches, creating a structure that is both unique and deeply tied to the land. The site was chosen with a purpose. The rock offered natural defense, with steep sides that discouraged attackers. Even more important was water. At the base lies an ancient well, connected to the palace by tunnels. This meant that in times of siege, the inhabitants could survive without fear of water being cut off or poisoned. From the outside, the palace seems modest. Its decorated walls are elegant, but not extravagant. Inside, the rooms are plain, small, and practical. Imam Yahya lived simply, believing that rulers should lead by example. The palace functioned as an administrative center more than a royal retreat. Still, the design shows ingenuity. Ventilation channels carved into the rock kept rooms cool during summer. Windows were placed to capture light while protecting privacy. Narrow staircases could slow intruders if needed. Every feature served a purpose, with nothing wasted. Today, Dar Al-Hajar is a museum. Visitors see the Imam's bedroom, reception halls, offices, and storage rooms. Each space tells of leadership rooted in discipline and resilience. From the roof, the view stretches across green valleys and distant mountains. The palace feels like part of the landscape itself, architecture shaped by strategy, survival, and vision. Socotra Island lies about 300 kilometers off Yemen's coast in the Indian Ocean. It sits between Africa and Arabia, in the path of strong monsoon winds and rich ocean currents. The island has been isolated for around 20 million years. That separation gave evolution time to create plants and animals that exist nowhere else. A third of its plants are unique, with strange shapes and striking colors. Some trees spread like umbrellas. Some cacti ooze red sap. On Socotra, nature feels different, almost unreal. At the center of the island sits the Dixam Plateau, a dry highland where the famous dragonblood trees grow. Their thick trunks hold up canopies of curved branches that spread wide like green umbrellas. This unusual shape is an adaptation, It gathers moisture from fog and channels it to the roots. The dense canopy also shades the soil, slowing evaporation and creating a cooler spot where other plants can grow. The trees are legendary for their resin. Cut the bark and red sap seeps out. It hardens into dark crystals called dragon's blood. For thousands of years, people valued it as medicine, dye, and incense. Ancient Egyptians used it in rituals. Medieval Europeans used it to make pigments. Traditional healers used it to stop bleeding and treat wounds. Modern science confirms its antiseptic and healing qualities. The name comes from a Greek myth. Legends say it formed from the blood of battles between dragons and elephants. Local stories say the trees sprouted from fallen stars, their red resin being starlight in liquid form. Standing in a grove on the Dixon Plateau feels otherworldly. The silence, the red light, and the even spacing of trees make it seem like another planet. Yet these trees face danger from climate change, grazing, and human activity. Without protection, they could vanish within a century. The Hajar Mountains rise in Socotra's interior, limestone peaks that reach over 1,500 meters, high enough to capture clouds and create the freshwater springs that make the island habitable. These mountains are Socotra's water factory, collecting monsoon rain and fog, storing it in underground aquifers, and releasing it through springs that feed the lowland wadis. Without Hajar, Socotra would be a desert island, unable to support permanent human habitation. The mountains have been sacred for as long as people have lived on Socotra, seen as home to jinn and spirits, as places where the boundary between physical and spiritual worlds grows thin. Traditional belief holds that certain peaks should not be climbed, that certain caves should not be entered, and that respect must be shown to mountain spirits who control water and weather. These aren't quaint superstitions. They're conservation practices disguised as religion, ways of protecting watersheds and habitats by declaring them off-limits to human interference. The villages at the base of Hajar follow rhythms dictated by the mountains. Life revolves around the seasonal rains, around the springs that flow stronger or weaker, depending on how much water the mountains captured. Farmers plant crops timed to coincide with water availability. Herders move livestock to higher pastures when lowland areas dry out, then bring them back down when the rains return. It's a dance choreographed by geography, by climate, by the mountains themselves. Caves riddle the limestone, carved by millions of years of water-dissolving rock. Some are small, barely large enough for a person to enter. Others are massive cathedral spaces, their walls flowing with calcite formations, their ceilings lost in darkness. Local tradition holds that some caves are entrances to underground worlds, passages that lead deep into the earth where ancient knowledge is preserved, where spirits dwell, where brave or foolish people sometimes vanish and occasionally return with strange stories. The caves have practical uses too. They're cool refuges during hot months, storage spaces where food and water can be kept, and shelters during storms. Some have been modified. Walls built to close off entrances, storage platforms carved into rock, inscriptions marking ownership or recording events. They're human spaces carved from non-human geology, meeting points between culture and nature. Walk the upper slopes of Hajar and you find yourself above the tree line, in an alpine desert where vegetation clings to life in the cracks between rocks. The views are staggering. The entire island visible below, coastline curving away in both directions, ocean stretching to the horizon. The clouds move past at eye level, wrapping around peaks, filling valleys, creating moments where you're simultaneously above and within weather systems. It's disorienting and exhilarating, this sense of being suspended between earth and sky. The mountains collect stories the way they collect water. Every peak has a name, every valley has a history. Shepherds tell tales of leopards glimpsed at dawn, of caves where strange lights appear at night, of rocks that move when no one is watching. Scientists dismiss these stories until they encounter the realities that inspired them. The Arabian leopard that does still survive here, the bioluminescent fungi that glow in caves, the frost heave that actually does move rocks. The stories are accurate, just expressed in the language of myth rather than biology and geology. Khalissan Canyon cuts through Socotra's limestone plateau like a scar. It was carved over millions of years by seasonal floods. The canyon walls are white and gold, showing layers that tell the story of ancient seas and shifting climates. In the wet season, water runs through the gorge, creating waterfalls and filling pools that can last for months after the rains end. The pools are striking. They are clear and spring-fed, with green plants growing around them. Small fish live inside, surviving the dry months when their pool shrinks to only a few meters. When the rains return, the pools connect into streams, and life bursts back into activity. Khalissan is like a maze. Side canyons twist away, some ending suddenly, others leading deeper into the plateau. Caves open in the walls, some looping back into the canyon, others fading into darkness. Walking here takes care. Paths are narrow, rocks are slippery, and pools appear without warning. Yet the effort is worth it. The canyon shelters plants that cannot live on the dry plateau above. Mosses, ferns, and small flowering trees thrive in the shade and moisture. It feels like a hidden garden, invisible from the cliffs above, but alive with color after rain. The walls also carry human history. Travelers carved their names and messages into the limestone. Some are centuries old, others so faint they are fading back into the stone. On the coast lies Ara Beach. Here, freshwater springs rise at the edge of the sea, creating a strange mix of sweet and salt water. The white sand and turquoise water look like a postcard, but it is the wildlife that makes it special. Sea turtles nest here, returning to the same beach where they were born. Birds also gather, drawn to the springs. At sunset, the place feels magical, a meeting of land, sea, and sky. Sha'ab Beach occupies a protected cove on Socotra's southern coast, sheltered from the worst of the monsoon waves by offshore reefs. The water here stays relatively calm year-round, making it one of the few beaches where swimming is consistently safe. The sand is fine and white, derived from coral ground down by wave action over millennia. The water clarity is exceptional. You can see bottom features 30 feet down, can watch fish moving through the shallows, and can observe the complex choreography of reef life. But Sha'ab's real attraction appears every day at certain hours: dolphins. Spinner dolphins mostly, though bottlenose dolphins also frequent the area. They come into the shallows in groups of 20 or 30, swimming in formation, leaping and spinning, creating displays that locals call the dolphin dance. It's not clear why they do this, communication perhaps, or play, or some combination of both. But it happens with remarkable regularity, predictable enough that locals can tell you approximately when to expect the dolphins, reliable enough that it's become part of the beach's identity. The local interpretation is that dolphins bring blessings, that their presence indicates divine favor, and that days when the dolphins perform are lucky days. It's the kind of belief that anthropologists categorize as animism or folk religion, that skeptics dismiss as superstition. But spend time around dolphins and you understand the impulse. There is something uncanny about them, something that suggests intelligence and awareness, communication and intent. They make eye contact. They seem to perform for watchers. They display what looks like joy, like playfulness, like behaviors that transcend mere survival. The beach itself is undeveloped. No hotels, no restaurants, no infrastructure beyond a few simple shelters built from palm fronds. It's not that development is forbidden. Socotra doesn't have the governance capacity for strict environmental protection, but rather that the beach is remote enough and the economy limited enough that development hasn't happened yet. The isolation has preserved what development would destroy: the pristine sand, the clear water, the daily dolphin visits that might cease if the beach became crowded and noisy. People come to Sha'ab with simple needs: swimming, relaxing, escaping the interior's heat. They bring food and water, spend the day, and return home in the evening. There's no commerce beyond occasional sales of cold drinks brought in coolers. No loud music, no jet skis, no parasails. Just people and water and dolphins, interacting in ways that feel almost primordial, like this is how humans have always related to oceans and their inhabitants. Fish are abundant in the shallows. Colorful reef species, parrotfish and wrasser, angelfish and butterfly fish swim among the coral heads. Larger predators patrol the deeper water: jacks and barracuda, occasionally sharks. Octopuses hide in crevices, emerging at night to hunt. Sea urchins cluster in protected spots. Starfish cling to rocks. It's a complete ecosystem compressed into shallow water, accessible to anyone who can swim. The reef offshore provides the foundation for all this life. Coral polyps build their calcium carbonate skeletons generation after generation, creating structure that accumulates over centuries into massive formations. The coral provides habitat, hiding places for small fish, hunting grounds for predators, substrate for algae and invertebrates. It also provides protection for the beach, absorbing wave energy that would otherwise erode the shore. The relationship between the reef and beach is symbiotic. The reef protects the beach, and the beach provides the sediment that nourishes the reef. Watch the dolphins at Sha'ab, and you're watching a daily miracle. These animals don't have to come here. They could hunt anywhere in miles of ocean, but they choose this spot, return to it consistently, and perform their spinning leaps in view of the shore. Maybe it's territorial behavior. Maybe the reef creates conditions that concentrate prey. Maybe the protected water provides safety. Or maybe, and this feels true, even if it can't be proven, maybe they come because they enjoy it, because play is its own reward, because there's something appealing about this particular combination of clear water, sandy bottom, and watching humans watching them. I'm curious, what feels most respectful? Developing Yemen's heritage sites for tourism, or preserving them untouched for future generations? So this is Yemen, not the Yemen of news reports and political analysis, not the country defined by its conflicts and crises, but the Yemen of stone and water, of mountains and coasts, of cities built from mud and forests that shouldn't exist. It's a Yemen of resilience, human and ecological, both where life persists in the most unlikely places, where beauty emerges from constraint, and where traditions evolved over millennia continue in daily practice. The tragedy is that in Yemen, the ancient cities, the mountain villages, and the island ecosystems exist alongside and despite the ongoing catastrophe. Wars have damaged some of these places, destroyed others entirely. Heritage sites have been bombed. Displacement has emptied villages. The economy has collapsed, making maintenance of ancient structures increasingly difficult. The challenges are enormous, the losses already significant. Yet, the places remain, at least for now. Shibam's towers still rise from the desert. Dragonblood trees still grow on the Dixon Plateau. Dolphins still visit Sha'ab Beach. The resilience that allowed these places to survive centuries of challenge hasn't been exhausted yet. The knowledge that built these cities and sustained these ecosystems still exists in the minds of people who continue living these traditions. This is why Yemen matters, not just as heritage, though the heritage is significant, not just as a tourism destination, though the tourism potential is real, but as proof that humans can build sustainably, can live in relationship with challenging environments, and can create beauty and meaning even in difficult circumstances. The lessons encoded in Yemeni architecture, in traditional water management, in community practices that sustained mountain villages for centuries, these are lessons the world needs. Yemen deserves to be known for more than its suffering. It deserves recognition for its achievements, its innovations, and its accumulated wisdom. It deserves to be seen as a place of wonder and beauty, of stories that inspire and challenge. These ancient cities weren't built by people who had easy options. They were built by people who faced constraints, water scarcity, difficult terrain, and security threats, and responded with ingenuity. They created solutions that worked for centuries, that sustained populations, that left a legacy worth preserving. The dragonblood trees deserve to survive, not just because they're unique, but because they represent evolutionary wisdom, adaptations refined over millions of years. The Arabian leopard deserves protection, not just because it's endangered, but because it's part of an ecological system that maintained balance for millennia. The dolphins of Sha'ab Beach deserve clean waters, not just for their sake, but because they're indicators of ocean health, markers of an ecosystem that supports countless species, including humans. Yemen is like stepping onto another planet because it preserves ways of being that feel alien to modern experience. It shows what's possible when humans work with their environment rather than against it. When communities value continuity as much as innovation, when beauty and function are inseparable, it's a reminder that the modern way isn't the only way, that ancient doesn't mean primitive, and that there are multiple paths to human flourishing. The skyscrapers of Shibam, the terraces of Jabal Sabir, and the villages of Jabal Bura show that Yemen's heritage is more than history, it's living knowledge. These places solve problems with ingenuity, cities that stay cool without air conditioning, water systems that sustain generations, and communities that coexisted with wildlife. None of it was easy. Life in these mountains and deserts has always been hard, but what endured did so because it worked. Yemen's value isn't just archaeological or touristic, it's instructional. In a world facing climate change, water scarcity, and sustainability crises, Yemen holds lessons. Craftsmen still build with mud and stone. Farmers still read their microclimates. Communities still know how to balance human and non-human needs.